Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Nat Walsh. Today we have a card using some paper rose. You have to excuse my fingers because I've been getting down and dirty. But anyway, we're going to use this leaf and element stamp set, and we are also going to use Sentiment 2 stamp set from both from paper rose. A mixture of distress inks, just the plain distress inks. We've got weathered wood, we've got pumice stone, peeled paint, Victorian velvet, and milled lavender, and bundled sage. So this stamp has sort of two stamps that go, like it's almost like a two-step stamp without the gaps. So you've got the solid image here. I'm just going to move my magnet. We've got the solid image, and then later on we've got another one. So I'm intermittently doing between the peel paint and the bundle sage, just so you know. And sometimes, honestly, when I do the peeled paint, when it doesn't stamp out properly, I go over it with the bundle sage just to give it that variation in colour. That, it's just nice. So a good chunk of these stamp sets have do I still have it here? I think I put it away. Have a couple of different, you've got different stamps to it. You've got the solid image, which is what I'm working on here. Obviously that solid image doesn't look terribly solid, but that's okay. We're going to do things, we're working with distress inks, so they were never going to be stamped totally amazeballs. But what I'm going to do later on is bring in some Copics and give it a little bit of definition, a bit of change. But what you'll also do in these images is sort of like the veins of it and different parts of the flower. So these are, again, some more solid images of the flowers. And I'm actually going to make some of these into little roses. Now I've just rubbed my hands all over the stamp set because it's a brand new stamp set, and it's also a solid stamp set, so we're just taking off that manufacturing like layer. It's sort of very shiny, and when you rub your hand over the surface of the stamp, it just dulls that down. It takes off the manufacturing, I don't really know what it's called, but it takes off sort of the residue over from the manufacturing. So the hope is that it will give you a much nicer image, much nicer solid image. But as I said, you're working with distress inks, so it's not really going to be their distress. It's a distress look. That's what we've got here. So I'm still going through. So this is going to be between, I think the pumice stones I use a little bit later on for a couple of other little flowery sounds. So this is mostly the weathered wood. And we're just going through, and I'm stamping this, sometimes 3 times, 2-3 times, just to get a bit of image. And as I said, with the leaves and everything, I'm actually using the combination between the two. So I can't tell you this leaf I stamped in peel paint and this one I stamped in bundle sage, because they've all pretty much got the same bits and pieces. Now this, as I said, it's got the extra elements that we're using right here. Rub my hand over the top, take off the manufacturing film that's still on there. So there's a couple of different ones. There's ones that have just solid dots all over it. There's other ones that have like a ring, which is that one just there, have a ring around it. And I honestly, and there's a couple of like smaller dots and larger dots. And then what I'm actually going to do is one of the solid images, or two of the solid images, I'm actually going to make into a little rose. So I'm going to show you what you need to do, and it's so simple, and it doesn't matter if it's not quite right, because roses never are perfect. They're all different. Every single one of them is different, so it doesn't matter. And this is a handmade card. It's not a factory made card. So if someone has any problems with it not looking perfect, then you can tell them to move on. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. Anyway, this is the leaf, and I'm just trying to figure out which way that was going to go. And I think, honestly, it's meant to go around the other way, but we're going to move the little tip there, and then it will be done. And no one's going to know any of the difference, so it don't matter. So that one has just like leaves, just like stripes. I'm just going to call them stripes down through the center of it. But we're going to use our Copic markers to change that around a little bit. I'm also going to put a glaze pen, and I go a bit to town with this, but we'll live with it. So now I'm playing around with filling up some of the background. It's not going to be, I don't want it busy. I just want a little bit. And this is where we're going to bring our acrylic, if I could talk, you know me, acrylic block in, and that's the outer layer. Well, not the outer layer, the lining. So you see it's not going to matter. Another little small leaf. And it's not going to have too many images all over it, so I'm not filling up the whole panel. And that's one of our little stamps we're going to use to make a rose, and this one too. So I'm cleaning it off as I go because I don't want to have... I was just going for the pink and the blue. I didn't really particularly want to add more of the purple than we already have in some with the milled lavender, basically. That's what I'm saying. The pumice stone, this is another little flower. There's lots of little elements in this that you can just build things as you go. And we're going to stamp a couple of, actually the pumice stone is this bow. Just trying to figure out where on earth I want to put this sucker. And that is, I'm just having a think about what I want to do. So that's the lining, the veins with a little stem. I got one more up the top. Clean up as I go. I probably should have used like just a map, but like a stamp pad, like a sketch. You know what I mean? Sketch pad type of thing. Okay, so we've got BG 96, 93, and then later on I add 99. And I'm just going up through the center of the flowers with the darker color and blending that out a little bit. Trying to keep the coloring relatively simple. We'll zoom in for a little bit. Down with that darker, up through the middle a little bit, and blend it out with the lighter colors. And you can see one of the pink flowers, it's a little bit off-centered, but that's the way you can see I haven't gone out of the lines of the solid image. It's pretty much the way it is. It probably should have been a little bit further over, but it's not going to matter because it's just going to provide a little bit of extra texture to what we're going to do with the Copics. Okay. So I'm just going to I'm putting some stems in and a bit of veins in with the green still. So we're going to use the Copics to put some more interest into the solid images. And as I said, we're going to make 1 inch rows, and honestly, I didn't really Google much of my flowers or anything, because who on earth is going to know which one of these is what, apart from the rose looking type of thing, and that could be, who knows, could be something else. So we have our V99, our V95 and 93, And I'm just making the center a little bit darker and just playing around with it, frankly. This is one of our little roses. So we start off in the center with a little dot, and I'm just working my way out very randomly, making not even a C. It's not, honestly, it's not even a C sort of shape. It's a bit of a C, but it's just got that curve. And I'm trying to off-center them from each other, so it's not just a line. So you have those petals in a rose that overlap. So the end of one petal is going to be in the middle of the one behind it. Does that make sense? I hope so. Look at a rose. You'll figure out what I'm talking about with the petals. So we're working through our V's, and we're going to use our B's very shortly. Here I'm just making lots of little tiny dots with more dark dots right in the center and blending that out with a little bit more sparser, a little bit not as close together on some of the other ones. This one that is a little bit off-centered, I'm doing it the same way as I've done the other one, sort of flicking out from the middle. And it's just going to have a little bit of difference. Another little rose here. And then I think we'd be pretty much done with our violet type of colours. So we're going to use B93, 95 and 97. Making another little rose. Making little semicircles with a little circle in the middle, and just using those lighter colors to blend that out a little bit and blend that into the background. So it just has a hint of variation because it's a really pretty tiny little flower that we're working on here. The same thing, we're going to do the flicking with the two bigger flowers that we've got. And I went with the flow. As I said, I wasn't picking out any particular flower or anything. I was just having a bit of fun. And that's what we're all about here, with just trying to give things a go, have a bit of fun, and just enjoy the process. Don't get overwhelmed. It really is a sort of art therapy without being art therapy, but where you can just sit, color, lose yourself, and hopefully not stress too much about what you're doing. Because as we said before, it's not, a blind man is going to be happy with the card even if you totally stuff it up. Okay. So we're going to trim this down. I'm going to trim it down to my usual 14.4 by 10 centimeters. And then I've just got some grey cardstock. I do play around with the shading of this. This one is a lot lighter than the one we're actually going to end up using. And that is a Martha Stewart scoreboard, which I don't think is available anymore, but there is some Score Powers that are out there. There are some small scoreboards out there. So all my information will be over on the blog. There will be the code for the stamp sets. There will be all the colours labelled, all the Copics named, so you can get all that information from there. So that will be the first little link. Also, you'll be able to get any information that you want, any of the products that I've used today over at Leslie, which will also be linked down below. The shop is now open and we are starting to have our classes, which is awesome. We've had here in Victoria, we've had over 3 weeks, I can't think of how many exactly, of what we call donut days. So it's 0 corona cases and 0 deaths, which is just great. And I do believe I heard on the radio, because we can all trust the radio, that the last active case has now just left the hospital, the person that had the last active corona case, which is just amazing, and everyone should have a little pat on the back over that. And I just pray and hope that people that are still going through this can have a bit of normality for Christmas and find some peace, and hopefully have some good news very, very shortly. So we've stamped this out in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and we've just got some clear embossing powder. Now, some of my Distress inks and my Copics were still a bit wet, obviously, because even on my leaves and everything else, it sort of grabbed a little bit. Nothing too major, but it did. I'm using a glaze pen here. Now, I do go a bit nuts with this. At this point, I'm like, stop. But I just couldn't help myself. So, and when I sort of finally looked at it, I went, no, just leave it. Don't touch. So here is the darker colour, which I am denied about it, and I just thought it brought more of the colour out in this darker grey cardstock. So that's what we're obviously going to use. So it's a pretty flat, it's a very flat card. It's just nothing is raised up, and it's all almost one layer. Almost. Anyway, take care. See you later.